Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Raising Cane's studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane's studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. We're brought to you by Immense Networks Cloud IT Management. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. I was out at the end of last week, went up to Shreveport, had a big Memorial Day weekend with the family, playing a little bit of golf. Enjoyed the heck out of that. Hope everybody had a wonderful and safe holiday weekend. And now back to action. And unfortunately, back to action that we knew was coming about a month ago. And the action is we don't have any action. We got no action. So that's going to be the struggle for us over the next few weeks. But we've got stuff to talk about. I'm going to talk LSU baseball. SEC meetings are going on over in Destin right now, and the football coaches are really letting it fly. And I'm interested in some of the comments, which y'all know. I don't fake interest in press conferences. Sometimes I think press conferences are completely worthless. These guys are actually talking a little bit, so we'll talk about that a little bit. Talking about talking. That's what we're going to do for a while. Glen will be with us in 30 minutes. Sharif Ishaq at the bottom of hour number 2. Saints OTAs rapidly approaching. So there is plenty to get to. I've written some pieces up at LouisianaSports.net, statistically speaking, breaking down what was with LSU baseball. And so that's kind of where we'll start here because I haven't been with you on Thursday and Friday after LSU's baseball season wrapped up. So let me kind of give you the last rites on this baseball team in our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
All right, I have not, as I mentioned, been with you since LSU's season ended. My last show was on Wednesday afternoon. LSU would go on to lose Wednesday night against Auburn to bring the season to a close. No drama on Selection Monday. LSU was nowhere near the bubble to have a chance to compete in the NCAA tournament, and that is not surprising in the least based on the last month. It's stunning based on sitting in this chair the second Friday in February. Stunning. Because a program that had reached the top of the sport cratered. And I say it that way with the understanding that, well, it's not really a program. There are pillars of what you want each team to look like at that stadium in those uniforms. But it is a team-building process. You build one team, a lot of it leaves, go build another one. And there's a lot of chance that goes into building those teams when it comes to the MLB draft. You get commitments from high school sophomores without really knowing 2 years later whether or not they're going to be good enough or want to sign professional contracts, nor how MLB teams will feel about them 2 years after you take their commitment. You sign transfers who you may have never even met in person. You don't know whether or not they're going to get drafted 3 weeks later. And you've got to use all these factors and all this uncertainty to try to put the next team together. And Jay Johnson's really good at it. And when he had to go get dudes in 2022, he found Eric Raiselman. He found Paul Gervais. And they cobbled together a pitching staff and got close to winning a regional. And then in 2023, he got Tommy White, and he got Paul Skeens, and he got Thatcher Hurd. And it worked. And the year after that, they weren't as good, but he found Gage Jump, and he found Luke Holman. Yeah, Michael Braswell was okay. Yeah, you got something out of Mac Bingham. But you're all the while signing these top recruits, and some of them are showing up, and they become Derek Curiel, and they become Jared Jones, and they become great on the mound. And then sometimes you go into the portal and it doesn't work. They've signed some guys that couldn't play. They've signed some high school guys that could play too well, didn't show up. And this iteration was, to me, the perfect storm of You lost guys that you thought might be able to come back. Like, we were iffy on Ethan Fry this time last year. And he swung it like crazy in the NCAA tournament, and the Astros gave him $1 million, but he could have come back. He didn't. But you had to go out in the transfer portal and try to chase a little bit of pop because Jared Jones, who did come back the year prior, well, he's not going to come back another year. So you got a break on that end that helped you win a national championship. Well, Fry left. Now you look up and up. I got to go replace some guys, and it didn't quite work. Well, how did your young guys progress? Well, some did. Jake Brown exploded, was incredible. Hit 17 home runs and missed 3 weeks. You give him what most LSU baseball players get, which is 3 weeks at the end of regular season and then 2 weeks in regular season at least into the postseason, and that's a 22-homer guy. He blossomed into a great player. And I would suggest Cade Arambidi exploded. Had a great breakout season. Derek Curiel was every bit as good this year as he was last year. Stephen Milam improved. Was better offensively. Was about the same defensively, which is great. But your young pitchers didn't step up. The position player guys did, the pitchers did. And you've had guys progress through this program and be great pitchers. Cade Anderson did it. Kason Evans and William Schmidt never approached that this year. And you didn't have some superstar freshman step up. Marcos Paz got some outs, but his ERA was over 6. We'll talk about that in hour number 2. Well, did some of your other young pitchers progress? No. Maverick Rizzi didn't progress. Like, it just, nothing really hit except for your high school signees that you had in the program for 2 years. That was all that you got out of this year. Seth Darnar could have been okay, but he got hurt twice. Stanfield never became what he was last year because he got hurt. He was hurt after the second game of the season. And so it just was a perfect storm of awfulness. And now you got to go fix it. And I took some solace in this today because I realized that y'all have day jobs that aren't revolving around college baseball. So you've got to know about what your job is. I can dive a little bit deeper into team over team over team than most of you can. So I know some names around the country or in the SEC that you probably don't. But my point in this exercise is the thing that LSU needs more than anything else is pitching. Because there is not one pitcher in this program right now, not one, who I can point to next year and go, okay, I'm going to get this from you, and it's really good. Not one. I think Kason Evans can be really good next year, but I just watched him be pretty mediocre. I think William Schmidt can be pretty good next year. I just watched him be pretty mediocre. Same thing goes with Paz and Rizzi and Lockenmeyer and all these guys. Like, there's not one I can point to and go, I know exactly what I'm getting there, and that's really good. I can't point to one of those guys and go, this is where he's going to fit into next year's staff. Not one. So you have to go get pitching. I now believe, based on that confluence of events that we just watched from a Jay Johnson team, where you lost high school guys you were hoping you were going to get coming into this team, where you brought in 4 upperclassmen transfers that were proven commodities, where your starting left fielder got hurt and couldn't be himself the whole season. You had so many negative things happen over the course of the season, and they still swung the bats well enough statistically. But they went to Mississippi State and scored 8 runs in every game and got swept. So pitching is the problem here. That's what's got to be fixed. And if you're an LSU fan, you automatically just go, oh, Skeens, Anderson, like we can do this. And that is true. You can do that. But that's a high bar. Here's what I'm looking at. Like Georgia this year went to Stanford and got Joey Volsco and went to Michigan and got Dylan Vigue. And those 2 guys spearheaded a rotation that was plenty good enough. And Volsco was a big, big get. Vigue I don't remember as much, but LSU just played Georgia. I think you recognize those guys. They were in the portal, got them. Like Auburn went and got Jake Marciano from Virginia Tech. He's an ace. He's an ace. Mississippi State. Now, that's extenuating circumstances where a coach moved from Virginia. But, like, Tomas Valinkis was Virginia's Friday guy, and they got him at Mississippi State, and he was great. Ruger Riojas. Texas found him last year, 2 years ago, at UTSA. He became an ace. Y'all remember Zach Root at Arkansas last year? They found him at East Carolina. Ace. LSU faced Hurston Waldrop, transferred from Southern Miss to Florida. LSU faced him in the championship series. Ace. Big leaguer. I'm not even mentioning the guys right under your nose. Gage Jump, Luke Holman, Anthony Heinsohn, Paul Skeens. These guys are available every single year. And I don't know what the pool of money looks like over there at the box. And I don't know who's going to be in the transfer portal come June 1st. And some people are already committing, which I find odd because the portal's not closed. Not open. But the point stands, people are committing. These guys are in the portal every year. And LSU needs to get at least one, probably two of them. And if you tell me you got two of them and you're prepared to let William Schmidt and Cooper Moore and Kason Evans duke it out for the third spot, I'm in. That's fine. All of a sudden, you've moved Evans and Schmidt from the top of the rotation to the back end of the rotation. That's a different story. And I'm okay with that. But this is where you've got to do it. And these names, I think these are names you know. So that's where it's got to go. That's not breaking news. But LSU went light in the portal from a starting pitching perspective. They got Cooper Moore, and that was kind of what you thought you got. I don't know if they thought Devin Sheeran would start. He did a little bit at Mount St. Mary's. I don't know if they thought Zach Cowan would start when he came over in that same class. I don't know if they thought that Danny Lockenmeyer had a chance to start or Santiago Garcia had a chance to start. But it felt like the guy that they brought in that was a starter at the Power 5 was Cooper Moore. It's got to be like one tick there. You got to go up a tick. I need Valinkis. I need Volchko, Marciano, Riojas, Jump. Just going to the big leagues. It's out there. It's got to happen. Because as I look at this entire body of work now for a season, and we know what it is, they had everything go against them you could possibly have from an offensive perspective, reasonably speaking. And they still, by the end of the season, throwing Braun in there, Milam getting hot, Aaron Beatty getting hot, Curiel swinging the bat like he can, getting contributions from freshman players, and they hit enough. They didn't hit at a national championship level, but that was as bad as it could have gotten. And they still hit some. They couldn't pitch. You got to go get pitchers. We're going to get into the statistics in the second hour of some of the stuff that I dug up on pitching. It was terrible this year. Terrible. And so these guys are available every year in the portal. You've got to go get one or two of them. You change everything around with two of them. It's a team-to-team situation in all sports, but college baseball as well. It's not really a program. And this team that Jay Johnson built just buckled. And nobody saw it coming. And I don't know that Jay could have seen it coming. But he's going to change some of the things he does, change some of the things he looks for, and I'm going to talk about that as we move forward here. But he's got to hone in on pitching for the next team, 2027 team. I need two dudes coming out of the portal to pitch, and they'll be out there. Jackson Jelkin's another name that I hadn't even thought of, but that's a guy at Kentucky who they nabbed that became an ace. He was great. Everybody got him. LSU just didn't. Counted on your two sophomores, and it didn't work. That's our opening drive, brought to you by Fabry Chevrolet GMC. Glen West in 15 minutes. When we come back, these coaches are yapping a little bit over in Destin. Lane's one of them, and I'll talk about that. And Greg Sankey's talking, and I'll talk about that. Mike Elko's talking, and John Summerall just lied. And I'll talk about that, too. We'll get it when we get back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, FabryChevrolet.com, FabryChevrolet.com. Man, they have got incredible deals over there at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. And it might be time for you to get behind the wheel of a brand new car. And if you're looking to do that, you can get a 2026 Silverado at 0% APR financing now until the end of the month. You got till the end of the week, right? 36 months, 0% APR until the end of the month on a Silverado. You want a GMC Sierra 2026? You can get one at 2.9 financing for 72 months now until the end of the month. They're there. And look, if you're looking for a Trailblazer or Chevy Trax, low as $30,000. If you want a new ride, go to Highway 61 in St. Francisville. See my friends at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. You can check out the entire inventory online at fabrychevrolet.com. Fabry Chevrolet GMC.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Love telling you about David Duvall over at One Bath and Closets. Maybe it's a good time. Now you got a kiddo leaving the house from high school. Time to go up there and change that bathroom around. Maybe turn that into a guest room or something. David Duvall can do it soup to nuts. He can handle a full-scale renovation if that's what you're looking for. Did it at the Haldane House here under our roof at Guarantee. Brian hosts our morning show, Mornings with Brian Haldane on Talk 107.3, and he contacted David and said, hey, looking for a complete revamp of our bathroom. Want to change vanities from 1 to 2 and handle that and everything that goes into it. And David said, yeah, we can do it. Knocked it out. And it's wonderful. It's customized to exactly what you're looking for. New, done, on time, and on the proper budget. It's David Duvall and One Bath and Closets. They do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. They've got financing options available, 0% up to 18 months, same as cash if you qualify for it. Go check out some of the pictures of their great work at onebathandclosets.com. You can get a free consultation. It doesn't cost you anything. Just start the summer out sitting down with David Duvall and talking about what he can do for you. It's One Bath and Closets. Find them online at onebathandclosets.com. All right. It is talking season. It's baseball season for everybody else, but it's talking season for us here. And they're doing a lot of talking over in Destin. So I'm going to hit a couple of the high notes here that have come out over the last couple of days for the SEC spring meetings. And we'll start chronologically and with the local front with Greg Sankey talking about Lane Kiffin's Vanity Fair piece and whether or not Kiffin would be reprimanded. And the suggestion was that it was possible. And I'm not here to blindly defend Lane Kiffin. I believe, consuming as much SEC content as I do, there is a majority, I'm not sure to what degree the majority is, but there's a majority that will go to bat for her coach almost no matter what. Because that's my team, and I've got my media hat on, and I'm coming at you. And I'm just not wired like that. Like, I was thrilled Lane Kiffin took the LSU job. I don't think he did it the right way. Like, I think the crap storm that he created at Oxford was not great. Like, I don't think that was good. And I'm okay saying that. I'm thrilled he came. I think he's a great coach. I'm thrilled he's got Charlie Weiss. I'm happy Principal Uman-Mielen's here. I'm thrilled that Winnie Watkins is here. I think it's great. I think they got a chance to have a really good run here while he's the head coach. I think that the way he handled himself at the end of the line in Oxford was a tough look. And like a lot of LSU fans just go, just point and laugh. You Ole Miss, your coach is leaving town. He's coming to us. Like, I don't care what he does. Like, I'm just not wired like that. I'm gonna call it as I see it. And there's certainly going to be some purple and gold tint to my glasses, but I'm not going to just be blind about it. And so I promise I'm not just going to staunchly defend him for everything. But in this instance, what are we reprimanding him for? You would have to determine that Lane Kiffin never, ever had a family member of a recruit suggest that moving to Oxford, Mississippi might be a problem for their family. You would have to prove that to be true. Because Lane Kiffin didn't say, hey, Ole Miss has got some real racial issues. He didn't say that. He said, I heard it from parents and grandparents. I don't know how if you want to say, yeah, I wish you wouldn't have said that, great. I wish he didn't do the Vanity Fair piece. But a reprimand seems ridiculous. Now, it's come out that Steve Sarkisian is not going to be reprimanded for saying that you can transfer to Ole Miss and take basket weaving. So I doubt Lane Kiffin's going to be reprimanded for this. But I can't imagine why he would be. Like, I'm completely on Lane's side here, and it doesn't seem to be, to me, an issue with a whole lot of gray to it. Seems pretty easy. Like, again, I don't think he should have said it, but I don't think that he was lying or trying to destroy Ole Miss with a comment. And I got a lot of that out of Oxford, which goes back to the initial part of this comment, that the commentary on it, that I found to be a little bit laughable. But look, that's not the only conversation that's going on. I told you at the end of the last segment that John Summerall just lied. And I can't prove that either. Nobody can. But I think he lied, and I'm confident that he lied because he was asked about coaches leaving during a playoff run. And he was asked if Tulane had not allowed John Summerall to coach in the college football playoff while taking the Florida job, what would he have done? And Summerall said, quote, "I would have stayed at Tulane and not taken another job. We were playing for a championship. That's not a shot at anybody." Okay, John. That is preposterous. To suggest that you would be staying at Tulane and turning down the Florida and Auburn jobs because you were, quote, playing for a championship. Tulane had as much chance to win that national championship as me and my 1-year-old and my cat, which is none percent chance to win. You want to say you were playing in it? Fine. But you took this job to get in and progress through and to potentially win championships. And Florida and Auburn offer that, and Tulane does not. And you got the opportunity, and you were going to take that. I cannot possibly, in any circumstance, see a world where John Summerall would sit down at Tulane when 2 of the better jobs in college football had come open. Period. It's the same reason he left Troy for Tulane, because it's better. And it's the same reason he left Tulane for Florida, because it's better. And to sit there in front of a microphone and say you would not have left is just, it's laugh-inducing is what it is. It makes me laugh. It's not a court of law. He didn't perjure himself. Nobody can prove him wrong. So he can say it if he wants to spin public relations in that way. It doesn't make it any more reasonable. It's ridiculous. And I don't even see it. I'm not even suggesting it's ridiculous from sitting here in Baton Rouge because Lane Kiffin did that. This has nothing to do with LSU and Baton Rouge. This is purely out of one lens. Tulane's coach said I wouldn't go to Florida because we're competing for a championship. Come on. That's just a lie. That's just a lie. And it's ridiculous. And it makes me laugh. There are no penalties from it. No one can ever prove him wrong, but it's just absurd. Now a more refreshing take that I found to be truthworthy. Mike Elko was asked about the playoff and what size it should be. And Elko said, why would anybody listen to what we have to say? You're asking me, Mike Elko, how many teams should make the playoff? 40, because then I won't get fired. And then he continued, he said, we're not answering based on what's right for college football. We're answering what's right for us. And that's always the case. Greg Sankey's not out here trying to protect college football. He's trying to make sure that his constituents, his 16 schools, have the best chance to win the most games and make the most money and win the most championships so that he can drive revenue up for everybody on the television side of things and everybody's happy. So he's not trying, and that's everyone's self-serving. It's just like politics in this way. At least Mike Elko had the guts to stand there and go, yeah, that's why you asking me. Don't ask me. I want 40 in, so I'm in every year so I don't get fired. Refreshing. And I found that to be absolutely correct. So there's a lot more that's being said. Lane Kiffin talks in like 2 hours. I think he gets 30 minutes at the podium. That's frightening for somebody who has to cover everything that he says. Whenever he gets in front of that forum, you've got those personalities that are going to have the microphones and are going to talk. I'm sure Lane will say something this evening that will warrant our discussion on tomorrow's show. And maybe that's good for this time of year for us to have that type of conversation. But none of that discourse is especially significant, like in terms of actual ramifications. What do I care if Lane Kiffin gets fined $25,000 or if Lane Kiffin gets an email saying don't do this, or what do I care if John Summerall would or wouldn't have hypothetically left and Mike Elko gets a 40-team playoff? Like, none of it is overly consequential. It's just discussion because that's what discussion is. And so I wish we were breaking down a regional, but we're not. So we'll talk about what the coaches had to say in Destin, and we'll continue to do that throughout the next couple of days as they wrap things up, I believe, tomorrow at the SEC spring meetings over on the Emerald Coast. When we come back, Glen West, 24/7 senior writer, going to talk some Tigers with us.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Baseball season's not over at Marucci. Never over at Marucci. That's the beauty of it. So even if your youth season is over, but you've got a little one that wants to keep working, well, Marucci allows that. Become a member at Marucci. You get key card access to the cages and the pitcher's mounds 24/7. Summertime, want to send them there during work? You can do it. Summertime. There is no time. That's why Marucci's open 24/7. Take some hacks, get some pitches in. You can do it all over at Marucci. You can also take a tour and see where the official bat of Major League Baseball is made. 1,200 of them every single day. Learn the story about how Marucci became the official bat of Major League Baseball. They're online at maruccisports.com/campus-tour, and every ticket to the tour comes with a 20% discount in the campus tour store and in the hitter's house. Again, that's maruccisports.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
We're brought to you by Immense Networks Cloud IT Management. They're online at immense.net, immense.net. Let's chat with Glen West, senior writer over at Go 24/7, covers the Tigers. Joins us on Tuesdays. Glenn, how are you?
I'm doing great, hon. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. I could be better, I guess, but I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the future of LSU baseball. I think we've picked the past apart enough, and the writing was on the wall for the last 3 weeks there. So how do you feel overall, big picture, about LSU moving into 2027?
Yeah, I still feel very optimistic just because of the people that are in that building that are going to be running the show. Jay Johnson's resume speaks for itself, and I think that he's going to use this time very wisely. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but it's a little different here when you have a chance to have 10 to 12 days to prepare for the off season and the transfer portal that's coming up here, as opposed to doing what they normally are doing, which is playing deep into the postseason at this time of year. So if there was a year where you were going to very much underwhelm in a season, I think this is a year where LSU will very quickly have an opportunity to add some very important pieces to the mix here in the short term with the transfer portal, and then shift their work to the MLB draft. But this is going to be one of the first times here where Jay has not had to prepare for a postseason, and so I think all that energy and all that time and effort will now be put into rebuilding this roster in very short order, and I think that is something that he's more than capable of doing.
What are some of the chief needs that he has?
Yeah, look, I think you have to start with the pitching staff. I think you have to start with retention. I think Kiffin, Evans, William Schmidt, Cooper Moore, Marcos Paz are all capable pitchers, all guys that I think can continue to develop here and be part of winning teams. I mean, you've seen it with Kiffin Evans. He's been a part of a winning team. I think Schmidt has made some strides, but certainly still has some work to go. And then, Cooper Moore is a strike thrower that I think you'd really love to get back and kind of be a consistent arm. But I still think that they need probably at least a couple of big swing type pitchers in terms of guys that you think can either start for you or be very big time, fill major roles on your pitching staff. I think you need at least two of those kind of players. I think you need to probably fill out some depth on the pitching staff as well, with hopefully some high velocity and high potential, high ceiling kind of arms, whether that comes in the portal or with this freshman class. I think remains to be seen, but I think you have to start on the mound. And that was one of the big things, even in the week leading up to kind of their end of their season, he talked about was just like having to really go back and do a full scale reshaping of how they view the pitching staff and how they analyze what they need in terms of getting that group back on track in particular, because I do think it's going to have to start there. And I think that's where you'll see a lot of focus in the early part of the transfer portal here. I think you have to go out and find some major impact arms to help hopefully complement a solid returning core as well.
So you mentioned a solid returning core, and I want to go to the offense for that part of it. We obviously understand what Cade Beatty did, what Mason Braun did, Omar Cerna as well, clearly. Do you think they have enough pop because he said in that now kind of famous press conference, like, we chased power and we don't need to do that. Or do you expect him to go get a bunch of guys that try to hit 320 that can run, and do you think they've got enough pop that's coming back?
Yeah, look, I think I think they do have some good power returning here. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you got to get Aaron Beatty and Cerna, all those guys back. I think if we're working from that assumption there, then yes, I do believe that they have some good pop on this roster already. That doesn't mean you can't go out and add some more, but I believe him wholeheartedly when he said, look, we want to try to develop from within as much as possible here going forward. But, at the same time, you're losing Derek Curiel, you're losing Chris Stanfield, you're losing Jake Brown, you're losing more than likely Stephen Milam. All those seniors that probably didn't work out for you this year are also moving on. And so there's a lot you have to replace within that group, just in terms of what you're losing. And so, what kind of mix they want to draw from the incoming freshmen as opposed to, and then also keeping some of the other younger eligible, kind of sophomore, junior type players, guys like John Pearson, guys like Jack Ruckert, William Patrick. I think those are all going to be priority pieces as well that they'd like to try to ideally hold on to. But I do think you're also going to have to probably add a couple outfielders, starting caliber outfielders. But I don't think that it's going to be focused heavily on power. I think what Jay's learned this year is that he just wants to get guys that can get on base. And, that's when they've been at their best, is guys that have been able to consistently get on base and move the offense forward, continue to apply pressure, get into scoring position. Those kinds of players are ones that he's always, thrived with. And I would imagine that there is a return to form in that sense in terms of just guys that he thinks can get on base at the SEC level, and then guys that can obviously drive those players in and kind of follow his structure and his system that he likes to run here at LSU offensively.
First base is generally a power spot where you can find some of that pretty easily, and they tried that obviously this year and ended up settling on Mason Braun at the end, who hit for a lot of power in high school, did not hit for power this year at LSU. Do you feel like he's probably the first baseman, or do you think that they will try to find some thunder there and they're fine if he needs to play left field?
Yeah, I think it's a little more up in the air. Like, I thought he, for his first time playing first base was very admirable, did a really nice job of filling in there, and was obviously one of their better hitters down the stretch. But, I do think that if there is an option out there for them to, add an impact first baseman, a guy that they feel like can give them that juice or that extra power, then I think there's a lot worse scenarios that could play out than having to move Mason Braun to the outfield, because, I think right now you could essentially kill two birds with one stone in that sense. If you add one player, but you also fill a spot in the outfield with Braun, then that, really kind of helps you going into next year with your outfield, which is going to undergo a really massive change there with losing the three guys that you've been counting on for the last 2 years. So I think that maybe there's still a little bit more up in the air there in terms of Braun's future. I think it'll also come down to what Braun and Jay Johnson decide in their exit meetings in terms of what the best future position looks like for him. And if they feel like it's the outfield, if they want to shift more to the outfield going forward, then I think they will try to find somebody at first base with some power, with some added bat juice that they could infuse into that lineup.
Glen West is our guest, senior writer over at Go 24/7, Talking Tigers. Let's transition to basketball. It's pretty clear to me in reading the NCAA's writing that they're looking at these international guys and they're not thrilled with that. And then I look at Alan Graves, who has said he's going to stay in the draft. Not that he's committed to LSU, but certainly LSU was thought to have a chance to land him. And are you a little unconcerned about the numbers that Will Wade may have on this roster?
I don't think so. I'm actually more probably concerned about the R.J. Lewis case, I think, than the international guys. Okay. Like, I think the Lewis one is going to be very, very hard to win just because of the situations that we saw play out with Alabama this last year, and that Bediako case is very, very similar to what Lewis is going to have to go through here in the months ahead. But I actually feel a little bit better about the international guys just because I think that they, none of those players that they brought in are at least to my knowledge signed actual NBA contracts. Their draft rights were to those teams. But they, I think a couple of them maybe played in summer league, like Madar, I think played in a summer league. But most of the guys that they have signed over from the international side, have not been on NBA teams or on G League teams, and so that's a little bit more clear-cut cases to me. I think the real kind of area here where the NCAA, if they really, really wanted to, could push back at LSU is if they get this 5-for-5 thing in play during the summer. Like if they get that rule passed, and there's going to be kind of an age, a maximum age for some of these players to participate. But at the same time, like if LSU gets all these guys in under the gun and eligible before that rule comes into play, then they, will be naturally grandfathered in too. So I feel pretty good about most of the guys LSU has signed or has committed to their program. It's just going to be a process of getting them eligible, getting their, records transferred over, getting them visas, student visas and all that stuff. Like that's just all going to take a little bit of time here that should play out over the summer. But I feel pretty good about where they sit with most of the international guys.
Glenn, we appreciate the time. We'll talk next week.
All right. Thanks, Hunt.
He's Glen West, senior writer over at Go 24/7. Let me tell you about First American Bank and Trust. First American Bank and Trust, you can find them online at fabt.com. Started up in 1910, 116 years later, they're still rocking and rolling in Southeast Louisiana, up to 25 locations. So no matter where you are, Dutchtown, where they gave away the 500 flags last week, St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, Long I-12, St. James, St. John, Lafourche. No matter where you are in Southeast Louisiana, there's a First American Bank and Trust right there nearest you. And what makes it awesome is that every single decision that's made on your commercial loan, on your personal loan, is made locally by those at First American Bank and Trust. When you call, you get somebody from here, not somebody in Chicago. Get somebody from Southeast Louisiana. They're part of your community. They're making the decisions on your loans. It's First American Bank and Trust. So if you're looking for that commercial loan, looking for that personal loan, check them out at First American Bank and Trust, fabt.com. All right, we're chugging along here on this Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Kind of a tough day to get back in the swing of things here from a work perspective. I got a couple of buddies texting me that it's just not been their favorite day of work after the long weekend. I get it. Usually we get a big pep in our step around here this time of year, but that's not going to be the case this year. Doesn't mean we're going to shut off the faucet, though. Got to go ahead and keep talking and keep going over things. I've got a couple of things coming up in hour number 2 with statistics on LSU's pitching and on LSU's offense that I found interesting. I wrote a couple of pieces at LouisianaSports.net dealing with that. Sharif Shackle Talk Saints OTAs coming up at 2:30. There was a selection show on Monday, and I watched it. And I wasn't as emotional about it as I thought. I thought I was going to start crying watching them pick baseball teams. But I just thought that there would be a real tug on the heartstrings. And to an extent there was, but it wasn't as bad as I was anticipating. And that makes me optimistic for watching some baseball this weekend and certainly moving forward in the tournament. But I think that while me breaking down the Morgantown Regional is probably not the best idea for content in Baton Rouge, considering LSU's out of the tournament, I do think what the selection committee did over the weekend and how they put the field together is relevant to our discussion almost every year. So I've got thoughts on the way the selection process went and what that means for LSU in terms of scheduling moving forward. So we'll talk about that to close out the hour next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com. HighlandIG.com is that website. Look, captives are a big deal, and they're getting bigger because everyone is kind of looking for a way to change the way that they pay for their insurance. It's just becoming untenable with the increases in rates. So if you have a sizable premium, you've got great loss history, you've got great risk management, and your broker has not showed you what a captive could look like for you, contact the Highland Insurance Group. HighlandIG.com. Say, hey, I need some help here. Somebody show me how this can work as far as a captive can go. It could be a game changer for your bottom line when it comes to your insurance cost. The Howard Insurance Group here in Baton Rouge, Jonathan Carver and his team deal with captives every single day. Find them online at HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Brought to you every single Tuesday by Immense Networks. They're online at immense.net. That's immense.net. If your IT department is overworked, if you have a third-party IT department that you're not happy with, just contact Immense. They're awesome. They've been at it for 2 decades. They're small enough for that personal touch that you're going to get with a local company, but they're big enough to handle big business as well. They'll monitor your IT situation 24/7. They can be proactive in making sure that you're up and running and doing things the way that you need to do them. You need to worry about what you're doing to run your business. Let Immense handle the IT. It's Immense Network Cloud IT Management. They're online at immense.net, immense.net. Right, let me take 5 minutes here to talk about the selection committee and what they did in this field of 64. They went really, really firm on the RPI, like really firm on the RPI. Here are the hosts: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. So they missed 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 19. The two that did not get there, that were top 16 RPI teams, were number 9 USC and number 16 Ole Miss. They were the only two in the RPI 16 that did not host. And both of them had significant red flags that the committee could look at. USC did finish 9th in the RPI. They were 1-11 in quad 1. Well, that is a throwout. No, you can't host. So that was obvious. And Ole Miss was on the team sheet, which the committee gets, was 15-17 in the SEC. 15-17, how did they get to that? Well, they were 15-15 in the league. They lost the Governor's Cup, which is a midweek game that counts as an SEC game to the committee, not to the Southeastern Conference, but to the committee. They lost that game to Mississippi State, and then so that made them 15-16, and they lost their first game to Missouri in the tournament. So with the 15-17, they were under 500 in SEC play. So I thought Ole Miss with 14 quad 1 wins and a 16 RPI would have a decent case. 15-15 in the league, but wasn't. It was 15-17 in the league. They got beat, but it was everybody else was the RPI. You look at the top 8s: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The top 7 in the RPI, and then Florida at 11. And Florida at 11 had 21 SEC wins. They were 16-12 against quad 1, and their strength of schedule was 2nd. So that was a huge feather in their cap. Now, we always go off of the number in the conference, right? You want to get in the field, make sure you win 13. You want to host a regional, get to 16, 17. You want to be a top 8, 19, 20. And that usually holds up. But it didn't for Arkansas. And you look at this Arkansas resume, y'all. They won 17 SEC games, and then they went to the tournament and won a couple more. So they're knocking on the door of 20 SEC wins. They were 18-13 against Quadrant 1 with a strength of schedule of 10. Like that is a good resume. Almost 20 SEC wins, 18-13 against Q1, strength of schedule 10. And they don't get a host because their RPI is 21. It's like, I don't even know what we're using the RPI for. We have a strength of schedule that's 10. Their strength of schedule is 10. Like, how many quad 1 wins are these other hosts getting? Well, West Virginia had 8. 8. They're hosting. State had 9. Southern Miss had 9. Nebraska had 9. Florida State had 7. Arkansas had 18. But RPI is 21. You're out. It's just, they lean on it really heavy, y'all. And while y'all were talking and LSU fans were trying to digest what was going on and saying, well, if they can get to 13, they get to 13, and everybody's going, well, your RPI is not going to be good enough. And I just, hand up, like, I'm looking at it going, well, I'm not sure about that. Like, I know the projection tool in Warren Nolan, but let's see how everybody does. And then if we get to that point where LSU does get to 13 wins, I'll look at the whole resume and look at it. And every committee is different. Every committee and every bubble are different. And in this case, they leaned heavily on the RPI until they didn't, because Mercer didn't get in and their RPI was 28, but they were 1-4 in quad 1. So essentially what I took from this, and not that next year's committee is the same as this year's committee, so I can't necessarily draw a straight line, but if you're an SEC team, make sure your RPI is in the top, well, if you're going for top 8, top 10, even though LSU was outside of that last year. And I said I wasn't 100% sure they were a top 8, and I got destroyed on the internet because LSU was not a top 8 RPI, but they got a top 8 national seed, and I was thrilled. But you got to have a strong RPI, and you got to make sure that you don't have a big red flag on your resume, like Ole Miss did. Ole Miss had a losing conference record of significantly, because they were 3 games under in the league because they played that Tuesday game in the Governor's Cup, and then they lost to Missouri. But like Kentucky gets in, having won 2 of 8 SEC series. But they had a better quad 1 mark than Mercer, and they didn't get swept. And they just kept stacking up one win after one win after one win, and they finished with 13. And that was enough. So again, it's not linear. You can't point to one. But when I looked at what the committee did yesterday, they went so hard on the RPI unless you had a big red flag. So stay out of your quad 4 losses. Arkansas didn't do that. Arkansas lost 5 games to quad 3 and quad 4, and that probably cost them with the RPI points. It's an inexact science. It's really fun. That's why I love May every year, because it creates chaos. But I think the field is good. I think the seeds are fairly fair. And now I hope UCLA or Georgia Tech pummels the SEC in Omaha. That's my sincere hope. We'll see. That's it for Hour 1 here, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. If you missed any of it, catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. We're going to talk a lot of stats for LSU's season. I dove deep into them as kind of the full autopsy, and we'll put that in the rearview mirror, and we'll start talking about moving forward after Sports Center.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
GoTro's Outdoor Power, GoTrosOnline.com. 22 years in business here in Baton Rouge, 2 locations, Baton Rouge and Gonzales. What you get at GoTro's Outdoor Power is a family environment. That's what they pride themselves on over at GoTro's. But that doesn't mean that it's some like mom and pop shop where they got just a few things on hand. No, they're the National Hustler Deal of the Year 2 out of 3 years. Want a zero turn? Get behind the wheel of the hustler. They can do it for about $100 a month. They have the largest hustler inventory in the state by far, largest parts inventory in the state as well. If you don't have a trailer, no big deal. They can get it to you. They're running trucks 8 hours a day to get parts where they need to be. So if you need that customer service with your zero turn to help maintain your property all summer long as that grass is growing like crazy, GoTro's Outdoor Power is your friend. 2 locations, Baton Rouge and Gonzales. Of course, they're online at GoTrosOnline.com.